David, good afternoon, my friend. Thank you for your time. How are you?
Yeah, good. Really good. Thanks.
Amazing. I appreciate you jumping on and
No, problem.
spending this time with me.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Happy to, share insights
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
what they're worth. Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. As I say with everybody, David, the intention for kind of these calls is just very simple. It's to kind of just go through kind of your experience in the program, kind of where you were before and where you are now after, completing 6 months inside of the program, and in the hope that it can help somebody else. Maybe there's somebody out there wanting some support. Maybe they're on the fence thinking of diving on in, and maybe your story will be valuable to them. So if it's all right with you, bud, we'll just jump on into the questions. Very informal, just a handful of questions to normally run through. So is that all right with you?
Yeah, yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, of course, I've spent 6 wonderful months with you, Mr. Holden. And by the way, for anyone watching, we are not related. It's kind of an ongoing joke. You're definitely the best dressed Holden out of the two of us. That's that's for sure. But why don't you kind of share with everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah. As you said, my name's David Holden. I own and run and manage a cocktail bar and wine bar on the south coast of England in a little town called Folkestone. So that's my day job and night job. Um, yeah, that's it, I guess.
Amazing. Fantastic. So, of course, you have just literally finished up inside of the program. It's been 6 months. So let's kind of cast your mind back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
What kind of problems were you facing before joining the program?
Do you know, I don't think of myself as a person who has problems.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was what a case of I do a lot of personal development and I try and look at different areas of my life and always try and kind of progress areas. So there's a kind of holistic approach to my world, if you like.
Hmm.
And you popped up on my Instagram when I was down some personal development rabbit hole. And I've heard this from a few people in the program. You came up on my feed and you know, da da da, or this is what I do, this is how I can help you, all this. I was like, this guy's a con artist. He's definitely a con artist. But anyway, but something clicked in my mind. I think part of it was you having the same surname as me, for sure. I think that kind of put me at ease a little bit, thinking, okay, I mean, someone called Holden can't be ripping me off. So then I had the call with you,
Mhm.
um, and it kind of went from there, really.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate the transparency, because many people will be thinking those things as well, and I get that often, as you well know. So you mentioned kind of you don't perceive yourself to kind of have problems, and I think that's a helpful narrative to have. Let me ask you a different question then. Kind of what attracted you to work with myself specifically then? Because there are many coaches out there, there are many coaching programs that you could have joined. Why specifically did you decide to start working with me?
Um, I think because I've worked with life coaches in the past,
Hmm.
and I've had some value out of them for sure. I think the fact that you not sold yourself, but it was all the program was based around self-sabotage.
Hmm.
I It was something that I hadn't really engaged with as it being a issue for me.
Hmm.
But on the flip side of that, I was still, I'd seen life coaches, I'd worked with life coaches, and I was still in the same place that I was before.
Hmm.
So then I think something in the back of my mind said, well, what maybe you are self-sabotaging in a way, and it's just a blind spot. So that was really the trigger point.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really helpful. Let's kind of just unpack that a little more then. So how is it you could have, at the time when we started speaking, how could you relate to the self-sabotage? Was it personal? Was it professional? Was it poor habits? Was it procrastination? Talk me through how you could specifically relate to it.
Um, I think it was probably poor habits that I hadn't really attended to, but I mean, weren't for me, I didn't think were anything too bad, but maybe it's those kind of small 1% incremental steps backwards or forwards that make that big difference.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think I'd come to a bit of a full stop in my business where I was just churning over the same kind of money, and I've been earning the same kind of money for the last 20 years.
Hmm.
So there's obviously some kind of blockage there, and I wanted to delve in and see if self-sabotage could unblock that or be some form of detergent to unblock it.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, and I think, I say to people, you'll know this, there's always a reason why we do what we do. The question then becomes why. For the most part, a lot of the time people they have these beliefs, these stories, these narratives that they construct that ultimately hold them back. And as you know now from, coming out of the program, we do have these beliefs about ourselves and we hold them wholeheartedly, be it conscious or subconscious. We can often make those beliefs true. So let's kind of, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you kind of share with me your experience specifically inside of the program? What was that like for you?
I found it really beneficial. I thought the format of it was super kind of conducive for me anyway
Mhm.
to learning. Uh, and I thought that there were I think the way that it's set up gives you natural breaks, which I think is very important.
Mhm.
Um, I'm quite lucky with my kind of work-life balance, I guess, because I get quite a bit of time off in the day because I work evenings. So I can sit in front of my laptop and I could smash through the program. And so it's good to for you to you there's some sections of it where you go, right, well, I don't want to I don't want to see you again now for 2 days. Let that do that exercise, and that was great for me
Yeah.
because it really it made me go away, and it made me digest the information and ruminate and then come back to it afresh. So I thought the way that it was laid out was really helpful for me and my brain.
No, I appreciate that feedback as well because, you know, I think a lot of the time people think more can equal better. Like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to digest everything, I'm going to run through it all. And as you've just quite rightly mentioned, there are breaks, there are kind of exercises, modalities that we teach, and we say, okay, go away 24 hours, do this for 5 days, go away for 48 hours. And yeah, I found personally that that's how we can get the best results. And I have to say, and I want to say this on record because I've consistently said it to you, but you have been an absolute pleasure to work with because you have stuck to that timeline. You've worked through it. I think you worked through the whole online portal in within 3 months of being in the program, which is great because then what it does is, and I don't know if you did this, maybe you did or you didn't, it gives you more time inside of the program to revisit any areas and any sections,
Yeah,
etc. So yeah, you were an absolute pleasure because you did actually, stick to the online portal. You did the work and you realized as well because you are the type of person who's heavily invested in personal development, you understand that the work isn't going to do itself, right?
yeah. No, exactly. No, it's been a real pleasure to do it. Actually, I've really enjoyed it. It showed me a lot of things. It shined a light on a lot of things,
Hmm.
which is it's invaluable, really.
Amazing. So in terms of the program, then obviously we teach the 3R framework, the recognize, the restructure, and the redesign. What would you say was kind of the most valuable thing for you? Which phase was the most helpful and why?
Um, I think the recognize is very helpful because, as I said before, everybody's got blind spots,
Hmm.
and they're the most difficult parts to fathom because they're a blind spot for a reason.
Hmm.
So I think that was very useful for me. Um, the redesign, I think I have. This is a huge compliment because I think a lot of it I've done a lot of work and I've listened to a lot of the same kind of things and I've heard a lot of what's in the program before,
Hmm.
but the way it's delivered really stuck with me. So I think there's something in that which is obviously real kudos to you. Um, but that's what I found. So a lot of it was new information, but a lot of it wasn't new information for me.
Hmm.
But a lot of it stuck where I've heard it before and it didn't stick.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge compliment. So thank you. And I I ask everybody before we jump on these calls, is there anything that's kind of you don't want to discuss? And coming from somebody who has worked with some of the best coaches in the world, you know, I won't mention any names. You feel free to mention those names if you'd like, but hearing that from you is a huge compliment for me. So I really appreciate that. Of course, I'm biased. It's my program. I think the things that we have inside of the program are great. But again, and I say this every single time I do this calls, the proof's in the pudding. And
Yeah.
I don't kind of determine the value. The clients determine the value. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
I appreciate it. So there's a couple of things, there's a couple more questions I'll run through with you, but there's a couple of things that you wanted to kind of work on when we first started working with one another. And one of them was kind of, there was certain beliefs that you wanted to work on. There was the whole fitness side of things. And there was also kind of different avenues that you wanted to explore within the kind of the business sense. So why don't you kind of share, yeah, what kind of wins that you've experienced, any particular milestones now that you've been through the program?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the program, which I find um, works for me, is the accountability part of it. I know I'm sure I've spoken to you before about Bob Proctor, but um, I went down a Bob Proctor rabbit hole, I don't know, about 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and it's resurfacing now, I think. Um, but he bangs on and bangs on and bangs on about an accountability partner,
Hmm.
and you've got it in your program, which is brilliant because there's always someone on your shoulder going, in the right kind of way, but going, have you done what you said you'd do?
Yeah.
And why haven't why haven't you put your wins up, or why haven't you done your accountability, or what is your accountability, or you said you do this, have you done it? Because it's Thursday afternoon now, and you said you do it by Thursday morning.
Hmm.
So it's having those kind of things. It's just that little prompt all the time, in the nicest possible way. But I think that really helped and really worked for me. Um, and then other wins in the program. I mean, I had a massive win with regards to I can't remember how you've put it in the program, but with regards to past kind of failures or regrets or that kind of thing,
Hmm.
which we obviously everyone stores and ruminates over and all that kind of stuff. And I had a huge win, as you'll know, in that regard, which was brilliant. Um, and yeah, I mean the lightness was instantaneous from that,
Hmm.
um, which is difficult for me to kind of fully explain, I guess.
Yeah.
But that feeling, I think I'd been carrying that negative energy around for 20 years,
Wow.
and it dissipated overnight, which is incredible.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you, David. Yeah, I remember that day and it was yeah, I remember leaving you a voice, and I remember where I was. I remember when it happened. Yeah, it was magical. And what I really like most of all is, you know, the program, of course, what we teach inside of the program is for people to, as you well know, stop beating themselves up for their past mistakes, maybe the ways in which they self-sabotage in the past, because that's what people do, right? And unfortunately, that can just be a perpetual cycle. They self-sabotage, they beat themselves up, and because they feel terrible, they then self-sabotage again. And when you did that exercise and you shared the result, and I'd like to kind of just keep that between the two of us, it really kind of, and I don't mind sharing this with you. It really made me think, wow, we really built something powerful in the online portal because as you've just said, you've been carrying that for 20 years and then overnight it was like, wow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite magical. So yeah.
And even when I speak about it now, there's tears building up behind my eyes. I can feel, it's super powerful, Sean. It really was.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Um, there's only kind of one other question. In fact, let me ask two more. Of course, we've just discussed kind of the wins that you've had after you've kind of finished up inside of the program and during the program. Let's kind of look at kind of how your situation has changed. Of course, you hired me. We looked at kind of the self-sabotage. We looked at the beliefs piece. As we just said then, the kind of the restructure phase and whatnot. Um, but initially, the personal side, there was that fitness element. You said, Sean, I want to get back to the gym. I want to get back into kind of my fitness side of things. So, yeah, let's unpack that a little bit more. How have things improved in your personal life?
Yeah, it's. I mean, personal life, as in fitness life, it's been great.
Mhm.
It's got me back in the gym on a regular basis. Um, 2, 3, 4 times a week for kind of 6 month stretches, which is incredible. And I feel as though I'm still on that journey and working towards the kind of best version of myself. But I
Mhm.
feel a lot better in myself with regards to that for sure. Obviously, we were talking before we started recording about sea swimming, and I've started to do that,
Yes.
which is I think is going to be another transformative thing. I don't want to be one of those people because you get them down here and they're all sea swimmers and they've got dry robes on and they're walking around Waitrose and I, it's all a load of bollocks. But it's I think it's another one of those things that just grounds you in the present moment.
Yeah.
Just got so much to think about that you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
So you're in that moment and you're not ruminating on anything else. And I got that with running, and I get that to a certain point with the gym. It's not as much with the gym because there's so much else kind of going on around you. It's not that kind of solitary activity. Um, but yeah, without being a sea swimming wanker, I think it's going to be another one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
The give it a few months, I'll bump into you in Waitrose.
yeah, in a dry row. No,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing to hear because again, I remember when we first sat down and we did your roadmap vision call, and there was these things that you wanted to work on. And it was actually, I remember the date, it was the 15th of April. We went through everything, and the fitness side of things was one thing you wanted to commit to. And I have to say, you have absolutely smashed that in. And we still see the wins on Slack, we still see gym, running, swimming, business. We've sorted this guest out. This is what's happening. And yeah, you're absolutely on it. Um, okay, let me ask you this last question. And I asked every single person this. We speak to a lot of people. We speak to a lot of people on Instagram, from YouTube, people that are struggling with the same things that you have mentioned here today. And like you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of them are thinking, "Oh, I've not invested in coaching. Is this, going to work? Is this guy a scam artist, etc." So, what advice would you kind of give to those people that are on the fence about maybe not even just investing in in my program, but maybe they're thinking of investing in themselves elsewhere? Like, what advice would you give to those people?
I would make it as broad a church as you can. There's not a silver bullet to any of this.
Mm,
And I've realized that from working with lots of different coaches. And in the future, I'm already thinking about the different people I want to work with going forward because I think there are elements that it's such, the human, what's the word I'm looking for? The journey that we're all on as humans, we're such an onion. There's so many layers to it. And I think life coaches that I've and business coaches that I've worked with in the past have been on that outer layer. I think your program is another couple of layers in under that for sure, because it's more to do with what's in here and what's in here.
mhm.
Yeah, I was going to say it's your mind, and your mind's not in here; it's everywhere. But anyway, let's not get esoteric about all that. Um, and for me, the next things that I look at coach wise, I want to go even deeper
Mhm.
than the level that you're at. So really explore the kind of route to, again, I'm not saying I've got problems, but the route to lots of beliefs, I think. So I think from a personal point of view and say asking or telling people what I think they should do, I think you should look at it as a broad church. As I said, there's no silver bullet. One coach isn't going to make everything a-okay. They're going to make it, if you find the right one, they're going to make it a whole lot better
Mm.
for sure. Um, but there's so much out there, and personal development, there's no end to it.
Yeah,
You know, it's an ongoing process.
yeah.
Um, and also you've got to find people that you resonate with. I've had coaches in the past that have been brilliant coaches, but haven't resonated with them.
Mhm.
And I think that was part of the reason that I came to you because having had that initial call, then there was a real connection there, I felt. So um, yeah, that's what I would that's my advice to people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I completely agree. And you'll know from being inside of the program, I never try and preach perfection. And I never, even including last night's call, I never try and pretend that I know everything. Um, and I think, and I'll share this, and I would never normally share this, but I think there are people out there, and not to kind of throw stones at other people, but there are other people out there in terms of coaches, mentors, etc., who think they know everything, and it's either their way or the highway. And I know what we teach inside of the program works, but I am also very aware that, like you mentioned, we're human beings, we're very complex, and there's layers and there's nuances, and the whole kind of personal development, the self-growth, it is continuous. It's never ending. So I really appreciate what you just said, that there are coaches that you've worked with in the past that are great coaches, but you've not resonated with them. And I'm glad, and I hope that my program has, like as you just said, made you feel a lot better than when you started with us 6 months ago.
Yeah, no, 100%. It really has.
Amazing. Well, David, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Cheers.